Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to the last 3 episodes. Episodes 21 through 23 of Steins Gate Zero. Yes, we're doing the last 3 episodes today. Something that I actually wasn't really thinking about before, but yeah, this is it. So, let me explain real quick. Let me talk about this show. I first watched Steins Gate years ago with a friend. We were watching stuff online together where basically we would Skype, and there were different shows we would check out, different anime and stuff. And basically we watched about 2 at a time, and one that I suggested and one that he suggested. And at one point we were watching Steins Gate, and I believe that was one that he wanted to check out. Neither of us had seen it before. But we watched it, and we both really enjoyed it. We watched the dub because it had been suggested to us, and yeah, we loved it. We thought it was a great show. We loved the just the moral ideals behind it, as well as the complicated facets that it went into about not just the entire time travel and science aspect, but the character aspect. That's one thing that Steins Gate always did really well. It had great characters and really went into depth about who they are, how they feel, what they think, and what motivates their actions. And it's been something that has stuck with me for a long time. When the movie finally got dubbed, you guys know I did a reaction to it. I think that might have been on the old channel, though, so you couldn't go back and look at it. Unless it is on this channel. I don't even know anymore, you know? I think it was on the old one, but either way. So when the movie finally got dubbed, I wanted to check it out. I was waiting for the dub because I had checked out the original subbed version of the first series, and while I was okay with it, it didn't hold the same impact to me. The voice actors just weren't the same. So, as you know, I reacted to the movie, and it wasn't as good as the first series, but I wasn't necessarily expecting it to be, because I did have those high expectations set by the series. And then I found out that they were making Steins Gate Zero, a sort of sequel series to the original that traveled down an alternate path in which Okabe gave up on trying to save Kurisu and focused instead entirely on saving Mayuri and letting Kurisu's death remain. And it sounded interesting to me right off the bat. It's like, what would happen in that kind of timeline? In a world line where Okabe gave up, where he didn't reach the Steins Gate world line, basically. And so I decided, yeah, I'm going to react to that. And I started, but then, after I had reacted to, I think, the first 2 episodes, the dub had come out. It was announced and it was starting to come out. I think I had to wait a couple weeks, but it did come out, and I started continuing from where the dubs, I continued from where I left off with the dub instead. And just like with the movie, I had very high expectations from the first series to live up, that I wanted this new one to live up to. And I've said before that, honestly, in a lot of ways, Steins Gate Zero has surpassed the original. And that might be a controversial statement to some, but it's my personal opinion that in a lot of ways it has. In other ways, it hasn't, though. And I think that makes it a really interesting series, because there are certain aspects that are better. For example, the inclusion of Maho Hyajo. And I'm not just saying that just because I'm a fangirl of her. Just because I think she's adorable, she's an amazingly written character, and I just love and adore her. I'm not just saying it because of those personal biases. I'm saying it because she fits in so well with the other cast of with the rest of the characters. She feels like a natural entity, which is hard to do when you have a tight-knit group of characters who you have accepted as this great, like, kind of Scooby Gang type of camaraderie. It comes across as when you add in another member, they're just instantly the outcast for the viewers. They're instantly viewed as just not as good or not as connected with the others because they were added in later. This is true for a lot of cases. And sometimes those characters can end up being great. One big example from one of the biggest anime franchises there is Vegeta from Dragon Ball. I grew up watching the original Dragon Ball as well as Dragon Ball Z, but I did watch the original one first. And so in Dragon Ball Z, when Vegeta suddenly became a member of the Z Fighters after the Frieza arc, I wasn't really accepting of it at first. I mean, the way they had him do so was, in my opinion, good, because he didn't quite join them in the more conventional sense. It's not like he just got reformed and became their friend. No, he started off as an enemy who later became an unwilling, I'd say like an associate. He was working with them for against a common enemy, being Frieza. And then he became a rival to Goku in a way to where he began to join their side only because he wanted to be able to be close enough to Goku to be able to know the limit that he had to push himself to in order to grow stronger and be able to defeat his greatest rival. And eventually he fell in love with Bulma and had Trunks with her. He just integrated into things. But it happened very gradually and in a very believable way. And I like that. Vegeta was always one of my favorite characters from Dragon Ball Z because of that integration. And I really, really like it when characters can do that. Maho Hyajo is like that. She doesn't start off as a villain. She starts off as sort of this new character introduced as basically a scientist who meets Okabe kind of by chance, and they connect. They connect because of the research that Maho is doing and her connection to Kurisu. Because of the connection to Kurisu, which is the bigger factor, they end up becoming closer. And her connection with Okabe is what brings her into the group, which starts to feel more natural the more it goes on. So, her inclusion in this series is a legitimately well-written and well-paced, addition. It makes it feel natural. And that's the best thing you could hope for. She is one of the best things that Steins Gate Zero brought upon us, and one of the reasons why it's better, because she's the Vegeta of Steins Gate. Vegeta, honestly, made Dragon Ball Z better than the original Dragon Ball for me. It was his inclusion. And his character, and as he continued to grow and change, seeing him in certain movies, like seeing him in Battle for Gods, for example, and the Dragon Ball Super arc that basically remade that plot, seeing him do everything he could to appease the god of destruction, Beerus, and then as well as actually going fully the other way, because Beerus threatened and smacked his wife, Bulma. Seeing him get pissed at that, seeing him defending Bulma, was such an amazing moment for his character. Because it shows how far he's come. That he is a friend now. That he's not just a rival, not just someone who's only in the group as a rival for Goku. That he actually has fully integrated in. He's a friend to them now. and he is truly in love with his wife. And in the recent Dragon Ball Super episodes that have aired in English on Toonami, I know the original Japanese is much further in, but in more recent episodes, Bulma gave birth to their daughter. And you could see in the way that Vegeta was acting, he deeply cared about her, about Bulma during this time. He refused to leave and participate in this tournament because he refused to leave her. And when Bola was born, their daughter, you could see how much it was affecting him. How he was racking his brain over a name to give her. How he was so confident in the way how to hold her as a baby. And how he just fell in love with her basically at first sight. It's just really well done. And I think, again, Maho is a perfect example of how that can be done in a, I guess you could say, a more serious show. I would say Steins Gate Zero, and Steins Gate in general, is more serious than the Dragon Ball franchise. But there are some things that, like I said, are not as good as the original. And one of the ones is that this series, Steins Gate Zero, does tend to move away from the time travel aspect a bit. The time travel aspect is still in there, and in the later half of the series, it definitely had a resurgence. But for a lot of the series, it's kind of abandoned. And there's a reason why, and it makes sense in context. But the time travel aspect was one of the big things that drew me in. It was one of the big things that got me interested in the series in the first place. And when I first watched it with my friend, that was something that we both agreed was one of the more interesting parts, especially with Okabe's struggles using it to try and save Mayuri in the first series. So when they took a step back from that and focused more on the characters, and especially Okabe, and their just struggles and what they're doing with their lives now in this alternate world line, it almost felt like it was losing a part of itself. Like the show was losing something that was really an aspect of it. I always said that Steins Gate is not a series with time travel in it. It is a series about time travel and the consequences of it. And Steins Gate Zero kind of goes in a different direction. Steins Gate Zero is a series about the people who have been affected by time travel and the stories that they tell through their actions, through their words, through their emotions, and everything else. But either way, Steins Gate Zero does have some good stuff and some stuff that I kind of wish they did better. But overall, I think it's a very fantastic series that definitely lives up to the original. It's definitely it's an excellent continuation. And I love the voice acting from all the levels. It's great to hear the original voices back. It's great to have Monica Rial as Hyajo. And I just really think that everything about it works. Now, that being said, we have 3 episodes we are going to react to today. 3 episodes to talk about, analyze, and end off this series. So, everything has built up. We have Stratford, the American agency that is trying to basically get this time machine. They're trying to start this war, and everything will go bad because of it. We saw in the last episode, Okabe goes to the future, and he sees firsthand, and we see, because of it, firsthand, how this future turns out. We've had glimpses of it before, but I think this is the first time we've ever fully seen it. And we saw Ruka's death. We saw horrible, horrible fighting. And it's terrible. It's a terrible future. But it gave purpose to Okabe. It gave him a reason to go back once again and fight even harder than ever before to make sure that they can reach the Steins Gate world line. This series has 3 episodes left. And while I always say that the ending is not paramount, that the ending does not make or break a series, it can influence the final thoughts of it. An ending can tip a series over that point and make it better than the original. In this case, better than the first series. It can tip it over the point and bring it to a level, bring it up in your overall rankings. Or it could make it so that it stays where it's at, or even brings it down a little bit. It doesn't make or break a series, but it can influence your overall thoughts on it. The ending is not paramount, but that's not to say it's not important. Of course the ending is important. Every episode is important. And honestly, at this point, for me, it's pretty much at that tipping point. I'm on the edge right now. These 3 episodes will most likely either overflow and surpass the original Steins Gate series for me, making Steins Gate 0 even better than I could have hoped for, or it'll more than likely keep it more level for me. It'll make it so that my thoughts on both are about equal, that I think that they're both amazing in their own right, and that this series, Steins Gate 0, is just as good as the first. It's very unlikely that my thoughts will go down, but you never know. But yeah, we have 3 more episodes, and we're going to watch them, and I've talked long enough about this. I will say that there is something I will discuss at the end of this video after my post thoughts, and that's regarding what we are going to be moving into next week on Wednesday to replace this series. But we will get to that when we get to that. In the meantime, when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts, and will contain spoilers to the episodes. So that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. We are back, and we will begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So as I was saying, I am sorry I wasn't saying a lot during a lot of that, but like I said, I was just trying to hold back a lot of emotion. Hoin Kiyoma's back. He successfully made 3,000 leaps into the past to get back to 2011. And through some trial and error, he saved the world. He stopped Stratfor. He saved Mayuri and Suzuha in the end. And the ending was a little ambiguous, to be honest. It wasn't, like, fully clear. At the very end, after the credits and everything, it showed him rescuing Mayuri and Suzuha. It's like, but it never actually showed him making the world, or the Steins Gate world line. It never showed that if he got everything to go back to, like, the perfect world. It never actually showed that. And let me talk about something I had been hearing lately. So, I've been watching the reactions to this series that Rarity Dash has been putting up. And he's been saying, like, okay, this Okabe This Okabe is the one who gets the Okabe from the original Steins Gate to, you know, make it to the Steins Gate world line. It's because of this Okabe's actions that the original Okabe makes it to the Steins Gate world line, and I don't actually think that's what's happening here. I think that this is just a completely separate, like, alternate events story. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily non-canon, because in a series that features multiple universes, basically, the multiverse theory, I would not say that this is non-canon at all. This is just a separate universe. But it is a separate universe. And because of that, I don't think it's really connected to the events of the first series that much. There was nothing in the end that had this Okabe make the Okabe from the original series and all, you know, reach Steins Gate. It didn't end that way, and I don't think it was supposed to. I don't know, like, where Rarity Dash heard that, but I had never heard that until his reactions. He's the only person I've heard ever say that that's what was supposedly going on with this series, with Steins Gate Zero. Like, all the advertising stuff seen before, it's like, it was just about, like, this is an alternate world line in which he was not able to save Makise, in which he was not able to get to Steins Gate, where only Mayuri was saved. It basically advertised it as being a completely separate thing. I would not call this a sequel series. It's not a sequel, and it's not, like, giving some kind of, it's not additional content to the original. In a way, it's more akin to a spin-off. It's more along the lines of an alternate story, an alternate kind of... I'm not even going to say an alternate ending, because it goes past to where that would be. It's like if there was an alternate ending, and then the aftermath of that alternate ending. That's more of what Steins Gate Zero is. The aftermath to an alternate ending from the first series. The consequences to what that alternate ending would mean. And I think for what it was exactly what it needed to be. But then there's the big question with what I said in my pre-thoughts. I said that these final 3 episodes could determine if this series, if I just view it as good as the original Steins Gate, or even better. And at this point, I admit, I always admit this whenever this kind of thing happens, it might be the hype talking. It might be the hype and emotion from having just watched it, but as of this point, I'd say it's better. There are certain elements that were brought into it that I liked more. I liked that they weren't able to reach the Steins Gate world line in the end, and that it didn't end with that. That it kind of left off on an ambiguous idea. That while he did gain his spirit back, he did become Hoin Kiyoma again, he didn't actually solve the problem in the series. It's kind of instead telling us that he's back in that mindset to where he will give everything to find that solution, to get to that resolution, to reach Steins Gate. But it's not actually going to show him doing it. Instead, it's going to kind of just leave it up to, well, basically, imagination. We can determine whether or not we want to believe that he made it. All we know is that in the end, they did stop Stratfor, and that Mayuri and Suzuha were rescued. From apparently, what was it, 18,000 BC? So, and we could see that Mayuri got the call from her future self, and she helped basically stop Okabe from going into that depressive state. She kept his spirit alive, as well as a message from himself, of course. They work together. Now, one thing that this series did not do is it did not confirm a relationship for this Okabe. The first series, like, full out straight confirmed Okabe and Kurisu. And this series kind of played with that, confirmed, showing that he still loved her in this this timeline version of him, this alternate universe version. He still loved her, and when he saw her again after accidentally traveling to the Alpha timeline, he still loved her. They kissed and everything. And it was showing by his reaction to Amadeus having to, like, go away and just stop being, that he did still love her. And this part I'm both a little disappointed by, but I also like it. And I'm on both sides there. Let me explain. I like it because it didn't force in the relationship. It didn't make it about that kind of thing, about a romance. Because this series was not about that. It definitely involved relationships, but it was not about romance. The romance angle was put in a couple of situations during the series, but that was more along the lines of just covering bases for things that were already something we knew about these characters. Like, it was obvious in the original Steins Gate that Mayuri had a thing for Okabe. That was obvious. We knew that already. So having her confess her feelings in this, it was more of like a big confirmation moment for something that we already knew, which wasn't really necessary, but it was nice to see, and it was good for Mayuri's development to be open enough to be able to admit that. And the stuff like that. With him kissing Kurisu, it was showing that he still loved her. Now, when I say I'm also disappointed by that, it's because I was hoping that because this was clearly an alternate world storyline, to where it wasn't really the same characters per se, like it was alternate versions of those characters from the original Steins Gate, I was kind of, just on a personal level, hoping for a different romantic end for Okabe. I was hoping that he would possibly get together with Mayuri. Not being able to reach Steins Gate again, but being able to stop everything else, he would move on from Kurisu in a way and accept Mayuri's love. Or heck, I would have been fine with Hyajo, because I've said it before, I'm going to say it again, I don't care how controversial or how much people disagree with me here. Both Hyajo and Mayuri have more romantic and better romantic chemistry with Okabe than Kurisu ever did. Kurisu's so-called romantic chemistry with Okabe was almost non-existent. There was a little bit there, but it was almost non-existent. And to be honest, it was the worst part of the original Steins Gate. It was the worst part because it felt shoehorned in. It didn't come off as natural. It didn't come off as believable. It felt like they were just trying to shoehorn in a romance because that kind of thing sells anime. That's the kind of feeling it gave. There was no real romantic chemistry between them. At least not enough to make their relationship believable. I never got behind their relationship. I was never, behind that. Which is probably why the movie was never as good to me. Because it was so heavily focused on, specifically, their relationship. And I just never really got into it as much as, the series, or definitely now Steins Gate Zero, because I never really agreed to that relationship. I never really saw that kind of chemistry between them. And don't get me wrong, again, as I've said before, I don't hate Kurisu. She's not my favorite character by any means, but I don't hate her. I do like her as a character. She's funny, she's entertaining, she's likable. But in the end, I just don't think she works well for Kurisu, or for Okabe. Honestly, I'd say there's more precedence for a romantic idea between her and Maho than her and Okabe. There was more with Maho. Maho kind of showed what could be easily seen as romantic interest in her throughout Steins Gate Zero. There were definitely some moments that she seemed to be, like, in love with Kurisu when talking about her in the past and how they connected and everything. Not just as someone she admired and respected. No, it was very clearly something else. Which, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to. I would like that idea, actually. Maybe Okabe would end up with Mayuri and then Maho and Kurisu if they reach Steins Gate and everything. But the point is that I'm kind of glad that they didn't just shoehorn in another romance like they did with the original series. But I am also kind of disappointed because there was a lot of romantic chemistry in this series, in Steins Gate Zero. While the series definitely didn't focus around that, and while the story definitely didn't lend itself to it as much, you can't deny that the romantic chemistry was there. Again, between Mayuri and Okabe, and then between Hyajo and Okabe. And again, as I said before, just a moment ago, there was even a little bit hinting at possibly Maho, Hyajo, and Kurisu. But yeah, it's just, I know that's going to be controversial to a lot of Steins Gate fans. I know that a lot of people will disagree with me, and that's fine. It's all perspective. It's all subjective and opinion. I don't expect everyone to agree with me. I don't even expect most people to agree with me. But that's how I see it. So these last 3 episodes were, yeah, they were just all about the return of Hoii and Kiyoma and, like, basically closing things out. Saving Mayuri and Suzuha, stopping Stratfor, all of that. But again, I like that it didn't reach the Steins Gate World line in the end. It left it kind of open. It left it to a more open-ended scenario than the original Steins Gate. And kind of gave us this, like, feeling of we fill in the blanks. In my eyes, I do believe that they would reach the Steins Gate World line with Okabe back to his senses, like, and everything, and Mayuri having, like, literally slapped his depression out of him back in 2010 because of everything. I definitely think that everything kind of fixed it. Everything was kind of fixed. But that's only my personal interpretation of how it would have gone from there. Someone else might see it as maybe not having worked. Maybe Stratfor still did their thing. We don't know. Apparently, Maho met everyone else still, but under different circumstances. So she's still in the mix in this world line. Yeah, I just really like how this ended. It was very emotional, very powerful. And honestly, it was just the perfect way to end. This series was awaited for so long. More Steins Gate. Everyone wanted it. Even with the movie, people didn't have enough. They wanted another series. And we finally got it, and it was fantastic. It was everything we wanted and more. So, yeah, it might be the hype talking. It might be. I fully acknowledge that. But I think it was better than the first. In general, I just enjoyed it more. I enjoyed the overall plot line a little more. And that's not to discredit the first. The first series was phenomenal as well. The first series did everything right that it needed to. Again, the only complaint I really had was the entire romance feeling completely forced and unnatural. But otherwise, it was a fantastic story. And I'm just so impressed by how well they did this one. In a week's time, I'm going to be at Youmacon. Next week, I will be at Youmacon. Well, not exactly a week from tomorrow, but still. I'm going to be at Youmacon, and at Youmacon, J. Michael Tatum, voice of Okabe, will be there, as well as Cherami Lei, or Shiremi Lei, or however it's pronounced. She is the voice of Yuki and Suzuha Amane. So, yeah, I've met J. Michael Tatum before a few years back at Youmacon as well. But I want to meet him again. I hopefully want to get to speak to him a little more. Especially now with Steins Gate Zero having come out. And maybe even congratulate him on his recent engagement to his boyfriend. And I'd love to meet Shiremi Lei. She does some other great roles, but definitely for Suzuha and Yuki. Especially now after this. After this amazing series. But there's one more thing we do have to talk about. So I mentioned at the beginning, what's going to happen next week? We finished Steins Gate Zero, so what is going to come next week? Well, I was kind of toying with the idea of using this slot to bring in the anime series reactions to what was suggested for the Mega Stream. If you remember, we did the Mega Stream recently, and 2 people who donated got to choose a series for me to react to in the future. Matthew Vasquez chose Barakamon, and Space Apples chose Oban Star Racer. And so I was kind of toying with the idea of like doing Barakamon following Steins Gate Zero, and then replacing maybe something else with Oban, or after Barakamon's done or whatever, do Oban then. I think I've decided on a different way to handle this. Next week, we are going to do another first episode versus. If you remember, we did that with Inuyashiki and K-On! Season 2. Well, we're now going to do that with these 2 series too. Even though there wasn't a tie on any poll, we're doing it just to, one, do it again, because I just really enjoyed doing that. I thought it was a great idea. And to make it fair. That way, we're automatically saying, yeah, we're doing these 2 anime, one after the other, but we're going to, instead of just me choosing just right off the bat, I'm going to actually give them both a chance and watch their first episode. And then I will decide which one I will watch in first, and then which one will follow it up. And it could go either way. I don't know. But I think it's a fun idea to do, and I think it's honestly just the most fair idea. So, yeah. I'll probably make another video to explain that for those who don't watch the Steins Gate Zero reactions. But that is what's going to happen. So next Wednesday, I will be putting up a reaction that will be both my episode 1. That will be my episode 1 reaction to both Oban Star Racer and mind is blanking, Barakamon. So that will be coming next week. As for the rest of this week, since next Thursday through Sunday I will be gone, tomorrow and Friday's reactions to Disenchantment and Inuyashiki will be 2 episodes for each. And yeah, we will be continuing from there. Also a note, next Wednesday, along with that double video, will be the Halloween special, because next Wednesday is Halloween. So next Wednesday will be the Halloween special, which, as the announcement I made before stated, is Shin Godzilla. So that will definitely be recorded ahead of time, but I will upload it on that day. I don't know at what time yet, though. So just bear in mind, it could come at any time, pretty much. I'm thinking sometime at night, though, just to go with the kind of Halloween theme. But we'll see. We'll see. In the meantime, yeah, tell me in the comments below what you thought of these final episodes of Steins Gate Zero and what you thought of the series as a whole. Did you love it as much as I did, or did you find more issues with it? Tell me your thoughts on the return of Houi and Kiyoma, and your thoughts on the addition of Maho Hyajo in this series. Thank you so much for tuning in. And yeah, it's wild to believe that I finished this, that it's over. We can only hope for more in the future at some points, but even if it doesn't come, this was phenomenal. So for the time being, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.
And though you've come through many obstacles, shed tears along the way, you're still standing, live, love, laugh.